Welcome back to BadgerBlitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by my good friend, Rivals.com national analyst. Rivals.com. What is Rivals.com? I don't know what Rivals.com is, but I know what Rivals.com is.
It's an offshoot.
He's maybe that's for the beard. Maybe he's going to be combing the beard. It's Clint Cosgrove joining me here a little bit earlier this week because he's heading out to LA, which I'm very jealous. But Clint, like we always say, bud, best time of the week.
Best time of the week. It just came a little earlier this week.
I love it. I need that sometimes. Been very busy around these parts here. Been very busy with you. Very busy all around the college football world. We've got more offers going out all around the country for the Badgers. And, well, we're here to break them down. And as always, you guys have been coming to the den with some great questions. Want to make sure that we hit on some of these really good ones this week. And actually, I think my favorite question of the week, though, was from Chief PT, one of our incredible den members here. He wants to know if Daniel Freitag wanted to commit as a wide receiver, where would you place him on the current depth chart? And I'll get to the depth chart bit here in a second, but we haven't even run the film on him first. And what do we do here? We watch the film. We love watching the film. We love watching the film. We're film geeks in the best possible way. Yeah. And so, honestly, I'd really only watch him as a basketball guy, and I hadn't watched a ton of him as a wide receiver. Clint, he's a big-time basketball prospect as well. What are your thoughts here on Freitag, and, what do you like about him, and sort of where do you see him projecting at the college level?
Yeah, honestly, I've never watched him play basketball, and usually if it was a football recruit and I can find basketball film, like I would watch their basketball film. Like that's a big thing, but I already know he's a bona fide stud on the basketball court. He's a top 60 player in the nation, highly, highly recruited. And let's face it, basketball players, pound for pound, size, length, everything, they're probably the best athletes in the world. So you only need to see a couple plays to get excited about a kid like Freitag. That he's got the size and athleticism. So let's see, does he have the body control, ball skills, and all of that? If you are a guard and being recruited at a high level and a top 60 player, which means you're a future potential NBA draft pick, if you can tie your shoes and catch the ball, you've got a very good chance to be a very good football player. So like I said, this isn't even his main sport. He probably, shows up at practices and then just goes out and mosses everybody. Big kid, athletic, catches the ball with his hands, very fluid with all of his movements. Like I said, I wouldn't even have to watch too much film of him. There's a reason that guys who have never played college football get drafted into the NFL based off playing college basketball. Now, guys like him are, 6'2" guards are a dime a dozen in the NBA. 6'2" receivers with his level of athleticism are not a dime a dozen. So I know nothing about basketball outside of those guys being extremely talented and get paid a lot of money. If he's got an NBA career in front of him, by all means, go play basketball. But his upside in football as far as NFL potential is going to be incredible. Big fan of him. 4-star type kid, makes moves in space. And like I said, he's just out there. It's like playing a game of 7-on-7. Everything's pretty natural. It's not like he's working on his technique every week. I could be wrong, but I imagine he's spending most of his time working on playing hoops. I'm really interested.
Well, that's actually somewhere I wanted to interject with you, Clint, was actually just talking about technique as we continue to watch his film here for just another minute or so. Because when you have a guy who's a really high-level dual sport athlete like this, to me, as you're the expert here, this is why we ask you the questions and not me. To me, that would tell me that he's actually got much more untapped potential because he hasn't spending as much time getting the precision route running stuff done, right? He doesn't have Jerry Jeudy's feet. You wouldn't expect him to have Jerry Jeudy's feet. He's got great footwork as a basketball player, but that's not route running. That's not that's very different type of skill set. And so I would imagine that would actually give him even more upside as a prospect.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why a lot of coaches, you hear, I want multi-sport guys a lot of the time, when in actuality, a lot of coaches want guys who just love football and work on football. The reason you hear the desire for multi-sport guys is kind of twofold. One, you want a guy who's competing year round. If you just focus on football, Now it's a little different now that 7-on-7 is pretty competitive. But if you just focus on football year round, you're not always competing to win every day. And guys who compete to win every day are just a different breed. It's natural. Every day that they go out and do something athletically, they're competing. There's something at stake. So that's a big part of it. But the other thing is, like you said, upside, the untapped potential. Now I could be wrong. Maybe he spends 60% of his time on basketball and he's just that good. And he spends another 40% of his time, working on his football craft. But like you saw him on defense there, and he's a baller at corner, and, you think about Allen Iverson, he would have been like the number one defensive back in the country had he decided to play football. His mom, he cried on the way to basketball practice. His mom made him play basketball. And he was a football guy through and through.
I mean, he was one of the greatest high school players in the history of the state of Virginia in football.
Yeah.
I mean, he was absolutely incredible as a quarterback too. As a quarterback.
I don't think people understand what level of athlete these NBA players truly are.
It's unreal.
Now, there's a couple game managers, obviously, in the NBA, but those guys are rare. You have to be a different level of athlete with a different level of size and body mechanics to be an NBA player. You look at Jalen Suggs. I remember being at a camp with him when he was like a rising junior, talking with his dad, and you hear it all the time from these basketball or parents who think their kids are basketball players, when in actuality, their ceiling in football is way higher. And his dad's like, he's actually a better hooper. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure he is. And,
wow.
It was kind of a joke. He's like, I swear. I was like, yeah, I'm sure you do swear. But I can tell you that there's no way he's better in basketball than he is in football. And look at Jalen Suggs. So it just tells you the type of athlete that they are. It takes a very special person to be that gifted. And like I said, most of those guys, if they're ranked that high in basketball and can tie their shoes and actually have some ball skills and can move backwards, guys who, especially in basketball, can probably play defense, they're going to be very good football players most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's then move it forward, spin it forward. So Freitag obviously, would be a huge kid. It'd be really interesting if he came and was a true dual sport at Wisconsin. That would be, that would be a lot of fun. We would see if the coaching staffs would be open to it if he comes to Wisconsin. Always fun to watch a dual sport guy. I remember, though, when we had Chris Chambers on our podcast, Chambers was a dual sport guy his freshman year. And he said he played in one game, took one shot and missed it by so much that he never played again. And it was fantastic. And so, but it's always, just the amount of work, even people think like football and track is, in some ways, a lot of, if you're a sprinter, it's still a lot of different technique work, but there's more translation, right? And especially with the timing of the seasons, it works a little bit more naturally to do football and track rather than football and basketball, because there's much more overlap with the basketball. But even then, that is still an insane amount of work to do both of those.
You've got to be a Michael Bennett or a BJ Tucker, one of those national class, Reggie Torian, Olympic level hurdler. You got to be that type of, gifted athlete to do that. I remember thinking that I might dabble in track when I got to Wisconsin. And when I couldn't make it through my first workout, I was like, what in God's name was I thinking? I don't even deserve to be on this team, much less another team. So you've got to be special and you just got to be different to play two sports, but there are guys who do it.
Absolutely.
Joe Mauer, is that his name? Joe Mauer, the baseball player.
Yeah, the catcher. Yeah. He was also an incredible high school football player.
They say he could have been maybe the only person who was capable of going to the NBA, NFL, and play Major League Baseball.
Dave Winfield was drafted in all three in high school back in the 70s. Dave Winfield was drafted at the University of Minnesota sometime in the 70s in all three leagues.
How come these guys are always from Minnesota? Jalen Suggs, Daniel Freitag, Joe Mauer. That is insane.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he ended up being a Hall of Fame baseball player, which if you think about it, if you think about the health and the money, like long-term health implications and the amount of money you can get in a contract, if you can go to pro in one of those three sports, Like, as much as I love football and it's my favorite sport, I'm telling you to play baseball all day.
Yeah, well, baseball's the easiest sport to go pro in because they just have, there's a much higher number that play between the minor league farm systems, get drafted and everything like that. It is probably the hardest, along with the NBA, to actually make a major league roster. Football players, there's just a lot more of them.
Yeah. But if you're that elite level, like that true elite level athlete, where you're going to be, where you're someone who's draftable in all of those leagues or two of those leagues, like, I mean, it's you've been blessed with talents that Clint, you nor I do not.
That wasn't because you worked hard.
No, it was. I mean, yes, you worked hard. You absolutely worked hard.
You worked hard. Don't get that misconstrued. It's just, if I worked that hard, or 100 times harder, it doesn't matter. I'm still talking about it and not doing it. No matter what the end game is. And you're not 6'4" running a 4.4 without training, and there are guys out there who do that. And I'm a 5'11" redhead.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a pasty trying to shed some baby fat guy. So I'm at 6'3". So here we are. One guy though who does not have baby fat, who is going to be an absolute animal at the next level, and let's face it, probably the NFL, if he keeps projecting the way that he is going, is the newest offer for the Wisconsin Badgers, at least within the state of Wisconsin. That is offensive tackle Owen Strebig. And I mean, we all knew it was coming. Dude, this guy is incredible. I'm blown away by him. I have a million reasons I love him, most notably because of the way he moves at his height and size. Like, it's silky smooth, and I absolutely love it. But Clint, you just wrote a great piece on Strebig. Tell us what, what your conversation with him was like, and then B, a little bit more about what you think of his, as we break down the tape and just talk about his game.
Yeah, well, I talked to Owen last night, obviously very fired up about the Wisconsin offer. He knows his value, and he's been working his whole life to be in this position. I think maybe early on he wondered if he would end up in this position, and it's kind of surreal. But he's gonna play out his recruitment, I think. Of course, I believe Wisconsin is going to be in it to the end. I mean, he grew up as a fan of Wisconsin, loves Wisconsin. But, as we watch the film, I'm going to talk about Owen for a second. The first time that I met him, and actually, while the film's on, we'll talk about it. But he's a legit 6'7" plus. He is flexible. He can bend. He's the nicest kid ever, but he can flip a switch. I just absolutely love everything about him. And the more I watch him, and I was watching this film today because I was writing about him, I've seen him multiple times in person, got to know him, met his mom, everything. The more I watch this film, I'm like, this kid is a future number 1 draft pick if it all comes together. And, you talk about how long his arms are, his frame. He is not like he's slim at this weight. And, he just covers so much ground with each step, but he has great bend. And it looks like sometimes that he might be bending at the waist, but that's not the case. He's just so tall. He's trying to get underneath guys. I mean, look at it there, the foot drive. He's a technician and he's so young. He showed up to our camp as a freshman. Didn't know who he was. The only thing I knew is that he was 6'7" and he was from Wisconsin. He showed up at the camp, and I said, going into the camp, we knew he was 6'7" and from Wisconsin. Leaving the camp, we confirmed that he was 6'7" and from Wisconsin, and that he had a lot of upside. He earned an invite to our Rivals 5-star underclassmen challenge, made it down there to Atlanta. He was a young buck among men, and literally just learning the game, just learning how to get into his stance. And his development and demeanor from the very first camp, very soft-spoken, nicest kid ever, did a really good job, but he was going against dudes that are national recruits while you're growing into your body, and he held his own. And I'm like, this kid's got a chance. He comes down to the Rivals Camp Series just a couple months later, and the transformation was insane. I was like, wow, we really have something here. And then he was a little more assertive, talking a little more. Then I go to the first game of his season this year, and I saw him do some things where he was down blocking and then rotating his hips out, using his length to long arm an outside chip guy, and then work to the second level and block in space. And he was still raw at that stage, but to see those flashes of greatness at the very raw stage of your career, when you are only scratching the surface of what you will be, when you are still learning your body, you can't help but just get excited about him. And then, as he progresses through the season, you watch him get better every single game. And then our conversation last night, you want to talk about the easiest kid to interview. It was like he was media trained almost, but it's just we have that comfort level because I've known him since he was a pup, and just so well spoken, so intentional with everything that he says, and it means so much to him. So I really think Owen's a star in the making. He might not start out as a 5-star, but if you're looking for a kid who might end up a 5-star and you want to place bets on guys who don't start out at the top of the order and might have some, plus 1,100 odds to be a 5-star, I'm putting money on Owen because this kid's got it. He has the tools. He has the ability. Just got to come together. He's going to be good, but he has a chance to be great. Mm-hmm. And I'm really excited to follow that development.
So I'll put you on the spot. Best, highest ceiling offensive lineman out of the state of Wisconsin since blank.
How funny is this? I was going to say I thought about this earlier today because there's some good offensive linemen in the state, some national recruits in the state right now, and he's kind of the youngest of that group. No disrespect to any of the other guys, especially guys that are way higher recruited. As far as ceiling goes, I would say he has the highest ceiling in the state right now. As far as, where did Joe Thomas go to high school?
Brookfield, Central.
Yeah, I don't want to oversell him here, but you want to talk about if he reaches his max potential with those physical gifts. Nobody's Joe Thomas. I'm not going to say that. And I don't want to put that on the kid because nobody deserves to have that put on them.
You don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to burden someone with that because he's the greatest ever.
Yeah, and let's just say that I see him, if it all comes together, like I said, he's going to be a very good college football player no matter what. If the cards play out perfectly, you stay healthy, you get stronger, you develop at the rate that he has, you're probably looking at a future first-round draft pick.
Yeah, that's what I see just because of the speed but it's graceful speed at his size.
Yeah.
But then when he needs to, like you say, he can flip the hips, and it's amazing. He gets to the second level so easily. He's
young.
It's effortless. It's effortless, and he's playing with other 4-stars, multiple 4-stars on his team.
Yeah,
he's just as good as any of them. And watch
his spring recruitment because there's going to be a lot of foot traffic at that high school because of Corey and because of Donovan, who are national recruits. Everybody's coming after them. When they walk into that school and see what Owen looks like, and then now he has the offers to back it up, there is not a school that won't walk in there outside of maybe the Alabamas or stuff if they come out that won't offer him on the spot. We
know Alabama's not afraid to come to the upper Midwest. They've gone to Iowa, the state of Iowa, multiple times. We saw them just get Caden Proctor. We've seen them go get
look at Lagway,
Rockenmeyer before.
Not Lagway. JC
Latham.
He was
he went to IMG, but I know.
But what I'm saying is they had to make a trip to Wisconsin to meet with the family at some point. They're not afraid to come to Wisconsin.
True. That's very true. So, all right. Well, he is one 2025 guy to keep an eye out for. We've talked about Cooper Catalano here before, 2025 recruit back in the summer, went over some of his freshman tape. That was actually, I think it was early half of his sophomore season tape. Super impressive stuff. Because one of the questions that we had, another great one from the Den this week, like always, was asking us to rank the big four, what they're calling in the state of Wisconsin. I said, I'm not ready to rank it. I haven't looked at enough tape yet on everyone. Catalano, Strebig, and then the two guys we're going to look at here next, Tre Poteat and James Flanigan. So We're going to take a look here next at Tre Poteat. And we're not going to rank these guys 1 through 4. We're not doing that here. That's not our job.
Yeah,
today.
I wouldn't feel comfortable.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable either. I even said when I responded to that, I'm like, I think it's a great question, but I haven't watched enough Flanigan, especially, to be able to make any sort of distinction whatsoever at this point. But I do think that they are all really, really intriguing prospects. I like Strebig like a lot. If you can't hear it in my voice, Tre Poteat, though, we haven't seen a ton of, big time corners come out of the state of Wisconsin, at least for a while now. That doesn't happen. And Poteat definitely has 4-star upside for sure. His father, Hank,
he is a 4-star.
Yeah, he is. Okay, he is a 4-star now. There we go.
He was one of the first 100 kids that we ranked.
All right, there you go. Well,
I think
it helps when your dad, a 10-year NFL vet, and a very notable, but he's earned every single point in that ranking. He's made a big jump, Clint. We were talking about this before I started recording. He made a huge jump from freshman to sophomore year, and he always had the athleticism, but you can see that the game is just slowing down for him in all the best ways.
Yeah. When we were watching the film before this, I was like, I don't know if I've watched him in the last few weeks, because for some reason he looked like he had taken another step on the same film that I've already evaluated. The more I watched it, I was like, he looks like Mel Gray or someone back there returning it, yet twice the size, and he could have a highlight tape as a return man. Now, you just love, he always had that length. He was a big corner as a freshman. He had the straight line speed, but now the body control and the mechanics are all coming together. He can, you watch him right here and he's out the gate. He sees a hole and hits it. And these poor guys that he's playing against, they're just not going to catch him. Not only is this guy behind him had some speed, but he knew he wasn't going to catch him. Did the early flop to save himself some energy. And, just the way Trey is developed body mechanics wise. And, there is a bias towards these guys who have the genetics. I mean, it takes a special pool of genes to play in the NFL for as long as his dad did. Now, you can do it by working hard. It is one of the sports where if you have the ability of other guys similar to you and you're willing to outwork them, you can stay around longer and play longer and make it farther. But obviously physically gifted. You love his speed. He's turned into a physical kid. He knows his angles. This kid might be the one who tried to run him down earlier, who looks like he could be a track star himself. And, he's able to get him there. But just the way that his bend and his shuffle and his transition and the way he sees the field from freshman to now is incredible. And when ranking him high or, looking at him early, there was a lot of projection going into it because he was a very raw talent. And now you see it all come together. He's able to pull the trigger. He's physical. He can play man coverage. He can play zone coverage. He's very rangy. He's built like a safety almost. He can play off coverage and then break on the ball like you'll see him do here. Look at that. Goes and butts off a block, diagnoses the play early, goes and butts off the block, and then makes the tackle in space. Gotta love that. The thing that I like about it there too is he's using his hands. He was keeping separation from the guy who was blocking him, knowing, and he can take chances. He can gamble a little because he's longer and more athletic than the guys he's playing against on the field. He would have been able to, since he did keep his extension from that blocker, had there been some type of sluggo or hitch and go, he would have had the range and recovery speed to still be able to make that play. So there's just so much to like about him. Block destruction, seeing the field, straight line speed, developing into his shuffle, his breaks, everything like that. And then, you look at the history. He grew up around football. This kid's been watching film since he was a newborn and didn't even know it. He's been in the office. He knows what a game day prep is. He knows what it's like to prepare to play on the biggest stage. And he's seen his dad do it as well. So there's a whole lot to like about him here. My early projection, I was just, I didn't want to put too much on him, and I was hoping that he would pan out and be the player that I thought he could be. And he's showing every bit of that and more with his development thus far.
Yeah, definitely.
The interesting thing to see is he going to stay at Verona, or is he going
to? That's what, to the best of my understanding, he is staying at Verona. The family is staying in Verona. So that is, I think that's exciting for, just people who love high school football in the state of Wisconsin. You can never have enough great players. So
you don't get a lot of players like that, especially in the defensive backfield in Wisconsin. I mean, I guess I came up in a rare time where we probably had we had a decent amount. I mean, like BJ Tucker and the Hansborough twins and, other guys who played with them. And, there was a bunch of good DBs back then, but it's a rarity in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
There's also a great time for track in Wisconsin too.
Yes, absolutely.
Which coincides with good defensive back plays. So.
Surprise, right? Surprise.
Yep.
Fastest guys on the field. So, all right, let's take a look at one more class of 2025 player, and that is tight end James Flanigan from Green Bay. Plays up at Notre Dame Prep, I believe, up there. And he was offered right at the end of January by the Badgers at tight end. And he is long. Like, he's just, he is long. Arms and legs and limbs and just, he's out there. Like, it's, I don't want to say like baby giraffe, but like it's like he's just
that's a great.
There's a lot of limbs out there, but that's good. I mean, that's not bad if you're 15, 16 years old. No,
you want legs and limbs, and if it's legs and limbs that are athletic and are 6'6", like you're going to go ahead and play with that. And the thing that I find interesting about this is just the way they're attacking tight end recruiting. With Longo's kind of, open offense, I think we're going to see a little hybrid of old school Wisconsin and new school run and shoot and spread concepts. And, this flex type of tight end is a good fit for those offenses. So, that being said, the first time I watched him, I remember thinking he's a 24, and I'm like, well, he's going to have to put some meat on his bones. He's going to have to, do this and that. And then you find out he's a 25, like, good Lord. For him to be able to run like this, for him to be able to block like this, for him to have the body control at his length, size, I'm sure when they've seen him, they've measured him out and projected what his mass will eventually be. There are ways to do that. Are they always correct? No, but when they offered him, they did that. It wasn't just a blind offer off of watching this film that we're watching right now. This is a kid with incredible upside. The athleticism is already there. To see him block the way he does, especially with down blocks and stuff like that, and be physical, get his face dirty, show that he can be a true on-the-ball guy, but also be this flex type of almost, what you would say a jumbo slot, but
that is my, that's my term, Clint.
I know, and you coined it, and I use it a lot.
I didn't coin it. I merely co-opted it from Mina Kimes. But I think, though, Clint,
shout out to her then.
Yeah, shout out to her. But what I want to say, though, Clint, is it terrible that I almost like him as a defensive end? like maybe even more? Like, is that?
I was thinking that too.
Is that terrible? Because like I see, it's not. With that length and that frame, like I could see that being like destructive. I don't know. Like I don't know.
Booker, Booker, I liked as a DN at first. I'm like, why would you waste him at tight end? But I'm a defensive guy.
Yeah.
And Booker's is going to be a heck of a tight end. But no, I see it. I mean, it's either side of the ball. I mean, JJ Watt was a tight end. Okay, so let's
TJ Watt was a tight end.
Yeah. And so you just never know. The kid just turned 16, for God's sake, who knows what he's going to be? Who knows how good he can be? There's so much projecting. You got to stay healthy. They got to have the work ethic, the right attitude, obviously, but the physical gifts are there. You just don't see young kids that have the ability to block and then also receive like he does. Yeah. I'm glad we took another look at him today, because I didn't really do as deep of a dive as I did, as we were preparing for this. And I think the kid's got a chance to be special.
Yeah, I think you mentioned all four of those guys. I guess you call them the big four in Wisconsin for 2025 right now.
I'm a big sunshine pumper today.
I think that's doing Charlie Hoynick a disservice because I think he is a stud on the interior offensive line as well. And Clint, while you may lean defense and defensive back, you guys know I will always lean offensive line, and I will until the day I die. So. And hopefully until the day I die.
Offensive line are the defensive backs of offense. They're the only guys who have to react. Yes, they know what they're doing, but in pass blocking, they're reacting to everything coming at them. A defense should never stop an offense. And this is why I'm a defensive guy. The offense knows exactly what they're doing. They can break off their routes based off anything you throw at them. They have an answer for everything built into the play. Offenses should score every single drive. And that's why I love offensive linemen. They are the technicians of offense, just like the defensive backs are the technicians of defense. It is a very, very technique savvy position that you got to be physically gifted and you got to have the want to. And I'm going on rants, but I love offensive linemen. I love defensive linemen too, and defensive backs and linebackers. But I will say that my favorite offensive players are the offensive linemen.
I mean, I'm offensive lineman for life. And if you guys didn't check out the interview Bernie and I did with Phil Longo, A, shame on you. Just shame on you because it was incredible. And B, we can officially pour one out for the fullback era at Wisconsin. Fullbacks we announced the death of the fullback on the podcast. They are officially dead.
Did Bernie pour out a Mickey's for him?
No, he didn't.
No more fullbacks?
He did not, but he did offer to have to find a new hat because he wore his "Make Fullbacks Great Again" hat. So that was a lot of fun with
Make jumbo slots great.
Yeah, make jumbo slots great. But it's not great again because they've never been great yet. I mean,
yeah, but they're becoming great, and
they will be great.
Yeah. And Coach Longo's working on that Ferrari, tuning up that Ferrari for.
You got to break it down before you can build it back up. Shave a little weight off, soup it up a little bit more. Excited that we're going to have Tress on this coming week. That's going to be a lot of fun.
You know the big wigs.
Yeah, and we've got Alec Ingold on the show next week as well. So that'll be fun.
He debuted his NFL All Day moment earlier this year. You got to ask him about that. I actually got it in one of my pack drops. Shout out to NFL All Day as well, because I did a Thanksgiving tweet and they were giving away 2 signed footballs from Tony Gonzalez. And
speaking of basketball players turned football players.
Gonzalez, there you go. Well, I was one of the guys who won from the Thanksgiving Day tweet. So I got this random message last week. So I'm pretty excited about that to see which ball I get and if it actually shows up.
That's fantastic, Clint. I'm so happy for you. That is amazing to hear. I think that's the perfect place for us to end today's show. Appreciate you as always, buddy. Safe travels out to the West Coast. Until next time, he is Clint Cosgrove at @rivals_Clint on all the social medias. I'm Matt Perkins at _Perko_ on Twitter. And at Believe in Badgers, wherever you get social media and your podcasts and YouTube and all that good stuff. We are BadgerBlitz TV. And until next time, we will see you guys in the den.
In the den.